We have a very, very exciting panel coming up where we're trying to answer the question, is innovation enough to secure energy security? My name is Amena Bakr, and I'm the head of research at Kepler, based out of Dubai. And the thing is, with energy security, it's a bit like health. When you don't have it or it's compromised, then you start thinking about, how do I get it back? But it's something that we need to think about in advance, given the leeway that we need to complete many of these energy projects. So to talk about this and more, I have an excellent panel here with me today. Sitting next to me is Hanyung, Managing Director of Gaoncell. Next to him is Douglas Kimmelman, Executive Chairman and founder of Energy Capital Partners. Then we have the Honorable Douglas Smith, Global Head of Public Affairs, Managing Director of MENA at the nuclear company. Fred Thiel, Chairman and CEO of MARA, welcome. And Fadi, Saadeh, the acting CEO of the Voluntary Carbon Market. Welcome, everyone. Hanyung, I want to start off with you. Do you think it's a kind of one-size-fit-all solution to the energy security problem?
Well, look, if we do this wrong, the clean energy transition just becomes a new kind of resource war, right? We spent the last century chasing after oil and gas. Now we are at risk of spending the next century chasing after lithium, cobalt, platinum, are these rare earth materials. The narrative is already shifting from how do we decarbonize into who controls the supply chain.
Yeah.
Right?
So, who is controlling the supply chain?
Well, that's what we are trying to find that out, right?
Okay.
Well, no. See, every region has different physical realities. Desert climates in Saudi, Arctic climates,
right.
Dense megacities in Korea, where I'm from, conflict zones, weak transmission line. These are all different problems, right?
Yeah.
So if we say true energy independence is doing 100% of your own everything, that is not the goal. The goal is to establish a world where capabilities are shared by design, okay? Yeah. We need to look at it in a way where we need to establish an intelligent interdependence between the countries, shared industrial corridors between trusted parties. Right? So here's what we're doing with our company is we produce the largest, most powerful methanol-based hydrogen fuel cell in the world. And we are going to be producing that right here in the kingdom. Why? Because the kingdom offers, there's no other country in the world that can produce green hydrogen and green methanol at scale such as this country.
Right.
So what we are doing is weaving intentionally our capabilities together to create a world where multiple solutions coexist.
Are you involved in the NEOM project?
Well, we hope to be one day.
Okay.
So that's what we are doing, right? Multiple solutions coexist because this clean energy transition is not a resource war. It's
right.
about stability.
Doug, I want to come to you and ask, how do you balance your investments between traditional upstream, oil, gas, all of that, and then looking at renewables? How do you balance between them?
Well, we're focused on power generation.
Okay.
And it is kind of all of the above. And as we're talking about here today, obviously we look at the marketplace and what does the market need. We've got a crisis in terms of supply-demand mismatch. And we can argue if it's more of a demand issue or more of a supply issue. But we've got, in the U.S. where I focus, we're still almost 40% coal and nuclear, and they're old, very old. A lot of it built in the 60s, 70s, and 80s. We're going to lose some of that capacity. So we've got to replace that at the top of the list. And then demand, it's not just AI. Right? We've got LNG, liquefaction, that is hugely electricity intensive. All of the onshoring of manufacturing in the U.S., the world of crypto, electricity intensive, electric vehicles. So when we look at all of that and the balancing, where's it going to come from? I start with let's try to slow the shutdown of these old facilities, number one. Number two, these hyperscalers, they want the power now and they want it in scale. So what can we do in terms of brownfield expansion?
Right.
That we can do in the next 2 years, not the next 10 years.
Right.
Solar and storage, on a relative basis, it's cheaper than natural gas, and we can get it online within 12 months.
Integrating it into the grid right away.
Bring it into the grid, and by the way, yes, the subsidies are going away. Yes, there's tariffs.
Sure.
But relative to a natural gas-fired power plant where the price of gas turbines have doubled in the last several years, perhaps not. Number 4, the big one is natural gas, and that I think is going to be the dominant because that can come quickly and it can come the cheapest. And then nuclear, which Doug's going to talk better than I will about it.
Sure.
We want it, we're rooting for it.
Big advocate of nuclear here, yeah.
Yeah, but what's the cost and what's the timeline?
Sure.
So it's balancing and looking for opportunities.
I'm going to steal your question here.
Go
Doug,
ahead.
what's the cost and what's the timeline?
Great question, and I like the fact that you said we should look at everything, because we believe in that too. I mean, we're
Right.
super excited to bring the first new nuclear construction projects online in the United States in 25 years.
Yeah.
I mean, the gap of what we need and what we have is huge and only growing bigger. Timeline, we think from first shovel in the ground, our first plant, 2.4 gigawatt plant, will be roughly 6 years.
Okay.
We're building these at fleet scale, so
Right.
same model, same
So these are not
size.
small nuclear plants. No, we're talking about a
2.4 gigawatt.
right.
So that could power the city of Cincinnati, 1.8 million homes or so.
Wow.
So, but most importantly, kind of pivoting off, the downsides on solar and battery storage is consistent baseload power. And that's what so many people need it, whether it's, if we want to build out further high tech and medical, data centers, et cetera, what they most need is consistent baseload power. And that's what we think we can bring. Through our partnership with Palantir and our proprietary operating system we're building, to your cost question, we believe we've figured out the cost problem. Historically in the United States, there's no denying it, gigantic cost overruns. The French got very clever in how they designed them, and that's what I kind of like to say. We're looking at sort of the Model T Ford approach here. We're not giving anybody a choice. You're getting a state-of-the-art plant, but we're picking the color, we're picking the power plant, we're picking everything, and it will allow us, as a result, to push our ordering pipeline so much further out. So we'll be ordering in scale, and I think that will help dramatically to not only lower costs, but consistency of delivery on time and below budget.
Sorry, just to follow up there. And the risks of nuclear?
I think the risks are gigantic if we don't do it. We desperately need it, whether it's the United States, Eastern Europe, here in the Gulf in particular. We are at staggering risk to not do it. I mean, the only thing that's had fewer, lower risk is wind in terms of safety.
Right.
Nuclear power is incredibly, particularly the modernization, and we'll be building what they call sort of version 3s. The safety systems built into it will be state of the art. The key factors are zero emissions. So not only will they be incredibly safe as physical structures, but for the environment, they'll be incredibly safe.
Sure. Fred, I want to bring you here into the conversation. I mean, Mara operates at a scale where the energy consumption could affect local grids. How do you ensure that you keep getting the energy supply for the growth of your business?
Well, we are a large flexible load, which is not, when people think about electricity, they want electrons that come out of the plug on the wall.
Right.
Right. And the problem is that the amount of generation you need is scaled to what your peak need is going to be. But we don't consume peak all day long. It's only 2% of the day. The average amount of generation needed on a typical day is about 60% of peak capacity. And so you have lots of underutilized energy. The vast majority of wind and solar energy actually doesn't get sold because of congestion, transmission problems, pricing. All the solar farms are selling electricity at the same time of day, and they're all competing against each other, and you end up with negative energy. And Duke University did a study earlier this year. The AI industry, which is the cause of this huge uptick in energy demand, right? I mean, for 20 years, US energy demand has grown by 2% a year.
Right.
All of a sudden, it's going to grow by 40%. What's driving that? It's AI. Duke University did a study. AI needs 43 gigawatts, more or less, I think it is, over the next number of years. There is 70 plus gigawatts of energy for AI available today with the existing amount of generation if it were flexible 2% of the time. So the answer in our mind is make AI a flexible load. Make it so it responds to demand response. And the only way you can do that is by marrying AI, which in and of itself has a very variable load, with something that's fully flexible, such that you can say, you know what, I need 40% of your energy back, And that flexible load can shut down completely.
So you can plan for it, basically. You know where your peak
Absolutely.
is, and yeah.
And in UAE, for example, we operate 250 megawatts of compute in partnership with ADQ and IHC and EWIC, and we are a load balancer. We go up and down depending on what the grid needs to do, and it allows the grid operators to plan more appropriately. We do this in Texas, we do it in North Dakota, we do it in Nebraska, we do it in Finland. In Finland, we even heat 80,000 homes with the heat from our data centers, which is a net energy savings. And we also burn flare gas to generate energy in oil fields, which actually is a methane offset. So I think there's a lot the data center industry can do to mitigate the impact of its demand on the grid. And while I respect my colleagues here who are all about building more generation, by the time that generation is online, AI's demand curve will have changed, I think.
So that's my kind of follow-up questions. There is a big debate on when is this demand going to actually hit? We're talking about, fine, 40%, but is it here already? I mean, are we...
No, so the impact on the grid is the minute you turn on the data center.
Okay.
So that demand is starting to ramp. It takes 5 years to build some of these data centers. Right?
Okay.
However, the real question is there a profitable business model to use all that compute today? Because that's mostly being used for training.
Yep.
Where you actually get the benefit of AI is in inference, and you want to run inference at the edge. I spoke this morning on a panel with the head of strategy for Aramco. They use inference to determine how they're going to drill. That's not running in a big hyperscaler data center. It's running at the drill site. Inference will happen at the edge, not in the cloud. And so I think part of the problem is people are looking at a very short-term issue and not addressing it appropriately.
Fadi, the voluntary carbon markets are a tool or a way for decarbonization, reducing emissions and making it, just looking at a commercial path towards that decarbonization process. Tell us a little bit about that. How is it picking up? What are the obstacles here?
Yeah, so as you see here in my panelists, so we have the hydrogen, we have the nuclear. So as they're building this clean energy, companies and corporates still need to achieve net zero, right? And for them to achieve that, they need to have an offset mechanism for now to attribute to that until they can achieve, like for the emissions that they're doing. And this is where the voluntary carbon market exists, right? So today, the carbon market just in the kingdom in the last 3 years, we have transacted more than 10 million carbon credits, right? Just in 3 years, we achieved being the biggest carbon market in the region and one of the top 3 exchanges in the world. And this is thanks to our clients, right? We achieved more than 40 leading corporates in Saudi Arabia. They have a unified approach into decarbonization strategies that they have, and achieving that was all done through the carbon market.
And how about in terms of the measurability of it, how commercial is it? Can you just give us kind of a glance at where we are now?
Definitely. So again, to build an infrastructure that helps being a more of a corporate grade solution to them, the way that needs to be achieved is those carbon credits needs to be credible. And the way that VCM works is they work with international standards like ICVCM. They work with rating agency. They work with registries such as Vera, Gold Standard, and Pure Earth to make sure that we only trade the highest credible credits in the region.
Thank you for that, Fadi. Hanyung, I want to go back to renewable energy and kind of examine the fact, could renewable energy intermittently meet the surge in demand in AI? And if we do manage to plan it, like Fred said, understand the curve when things peak, could renewable energy fill that gap?
No, not alone.
Okay.
The kind of electricity demand that's coming in is not normal household loads. It's not refrigerators. It's not street lamps.
Right.
It's AI training clusters.
Yep.
It's hyperscale data centers
Yep.
that hosting national data. It's hospital life support, border security. These systems cannot go down, right? They require always available power. And if they go down, it's introducing vulnerability into national security, right? Right now, we are layering that critical, always-on digital infrastructure on a grid that were never even designed for it.
Right.
Okay? So here's how a baseload national grid looks like, right? On a national scale, you need nuclear, as Doug said. You need solar and wind also. They are essential. They drive down costs. They reduce emissions. Batteries help, but also they're duration limited, and they require resources that only a few countries can hold. Right? So if we are building our critical infrastructure on top of renewables plus batteries, effectively what we are saying is we are happy with putting this critical infrastructure being one weather event away from a complete catastrophe. Or better still, what we've all experienced a couple of years ago, one supply chain shock away from having no replacement part that powers our country. Right? So this is not a stable world. This is not resilient. So when we are building a strong national baseload at a national scale, you need nuclear, as we said. You need natural gas with advanced carbon capture. E-fuel combustion, if that's the correct path. Solar and wind, if they truly fit. So
for a country like Saudi Arabia, for example, what do you imagine to be, if we're just doing theoretically, ideally on paper?
I think it'll be all of that.
Okay.
Right? It requires all of those baseload power to carry the civilization forward, right? But when we look at the local facility level scale, so data centers, these local hospitals, local military, on top of the national level, you also need a local independent backup power that is not diesel. Right? So and that's where hydrogen and methanol usually comes in because they're dispatchable, they're scalable, they don't emit any emission. So this is what a strong AI nation power looks like. You know, if we keep layering our digital infrastructure on top of an aging grid, we are introducing national vulnerability into the core of our economics. And we don't have a lot of time to secure and harden this. Right, before the next AI revolution comes. And we are continuously building more and more data centers. Yeah. So right now, we've only got a few years to harden the infrastructure now.
Yeah, that makes sense. Doug, with the current administration, how do you engage with them? Which areas do you think that they're cooperating more than others? What do you would like to see, like in terms of policy, that would make your life easier?
Yeah, well, I think top of the list, this administration realizes the U.S. with $38 trillion of debt and a huge deficit. We can't cut our way out of it. We got to grow our way out of it. President, this morning in Korea at APEC conference, he's now set the bar higher, 4% GDP growth he thinks we can hit next
Is it
quarter.
possible?
I think it is possible. When you look at the trillions of dollars, he threw a number out of 18 trillion this morning of being invested in the U.S.
Yeah.
It is AI. And no electricity, no AI, no natural gas production, no electricity. I call that the triangle of trillions. And so what the administration is trying to make sure...
I like that, triangle of trillions.
Those three, those dollars flow today, not in 5 years, not in 10 years. And it's a gift from above for this president that AI fell in his lap, that he has the opportunity to grow us out of this deficit. So their strategy is, how do we get out of your way? And they've got coordination like I've never seen before. They've put together the NEDC, the National Energy Dominance Council, big word that he likes, to help coordinate. You got one-stop shopping of who to call. But the Secretary of Interior, Federal Lands, Doug Burgum, on top of it in coordination. Chris Wright, the Secretary of Energy, same page. They just brought in a new chair of the FERC, the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, Laura Sweat. So you talk to one, you've talked to all of them, and I shouldn't leave out Lee Zeldin, the EPA. They're on the same page. We want to grow the economy. We want to get out of your way. We need AI to happen quickly, because if we don't go quickly, AI is going perhaps to China or going somewhere else in the world. So there's an alignment and there's a motivation to do this now and do it right. You know, the president is a fan of the here and now, and he's a fan of fossil fuels.
He gets things done.
And natural gas. So we got to get the pipelines built. And while, you know, we all see the attributes of nuclear and demand-side management, what can we do today, which is probably going to be top of the list?
Today, at this point in time, would you say America is energy independent?
Well, yes, we are. We're an exporter. We are energy independent. We are the largest export. We export 30% of our production.
Okay.
So we're well beyond
Okay.
energy independent. 10 years ago, if you took a poll around here, people would say, no way the U.S. can be energy independent. But
Yeah.
this thing called hydraulic fracturing and horizontal drilling
Yeah.
put us more than on the path, put us there, which has been driving the U.S. economy. How do we use that to our advantage? We're exporting natural gas to Europe in huge quantities.
Sure. LNG. Yeah, that's right. Hanyung mentioned here, Doug, and I want to kind of touch on this, that Saudi Arabia needs to use all solutions, including nuclear. Do you think it makes sense for Saudi Arabia to have a nuclear facility? What kind of facility? And we all heard, I mean, we've read in the papers about the trip that's coming up with the Crown Prince perhaps going to Washington, D.C. really soon. Do you think that's going to result in a 1, 2, 3 agreement, the U.S. getting involved in projects here?
Yeah, I'll try not to break too much news. I think
No,
let's
please
start
do.
with the first question. The short answer is absolutely. So on any given day, Saudi Aramco pumps 11 million barrels of oil. Of that 11 million barrels, 1 million barrels is used to power desalination plants. So if the kingdom were to build a large 2.4 gigawatt plant here and could transfer, instead of burning oil, to nuclear to power that, they'd be selling 365 million barrels in the open market every year, equating to roughly today's cost $23.5 billion. So worst case scenario, and it wouldn't be this, but let's just pretend it costs $10 billion to build a plant here. At the end of Q2, they'd be profitable. So you work for a publicly traded company, there's not a person in the world that wouldn't take that deal. I think, the GCC, we've seen it work in the Emirates. I think the kingdom is very keen to build nuclear. They see, as they build more and more, they do have a demand problem. They're probably 30 plus gigawatts already in the hole for what they need to make to meet for demand here. They want to build data centers. If they really want to light a fire under this, building nuclear is where it's going to be at. The good news is the Crown Prince and the President have a tremendous relationship. I think the Biden administration got it very close. I am wildly optimistic that the negotiating team that Secretary Wright has been leading is super close. I think we know that energy is one of the pillars of the talks coming up on November 18th. So we're knock on whatever this is, that nuclear will be part of that. So
You don't see the obstacle being that 1, 2, 3 agreement?
They're my belief is there will be an agreement.
Yeah.
If how this president is, I think you said it really well. I mean, he is streamlining things. I think there will be an agreement that will be safe, keep both parties happy,
Sure.
but perhaps will be a bit of a hybrid that meets the letter of the law, but meets also kind of the spirit of the cooperation that has gone between these two countries for so many years. So.
And compared to other technologies, if we're looking at Russian nuclear technology, Chinese nuclear technology, how is American technology different? Why should Saudi Arabia use American technology?
So it's really not so much a technology problem, although we think that what we're bringing to the market, particularly with our proprietary operating system, will be the standard for the world. I think the reason that, and we saw this when, I was literally in this building 5 months ago when the president came on his trip. I think the reason the kingdom will fully embrace nuclear technology and nuclear experts is it's kind of a 3-for-1 win. The 3-for-1 would be, one, he immediately gets brownie points with the president on investments in the United States. Two, those investments will result in the creation of tens of thousands of American jobs, which our president is obviously going to like very much. But three, just as importantly for the kingdom, is they really try to build their own systems here. What we've committed and what we've been working very closely with the government here, we are going to train the operators of their plants today in America that will then transfer here to operate them tomorrow. So as a result, they're going to have 3 wins out of this relationship.
Makes sense. Fred, you mentioned that Mara is using stranded and underutilized energy resources like flared natural gas. You're using renewables as well. How do you see that strategy evolving?
So for us, if you think about a wind farm, for example, a typical wind farm produces energy maybe 30% of the day, and of that energy, less than 10% of it is sold depending on the market constraints and the congestion in the marketplace, at a profit. And so there's a lot of idle energy. We can operate fully dispatchable compute at that site and use every single electron that can't be sold at a higher price. And we believe so much in that we've actually bought wind farms. And so what we do is we take equipment that we operate, which is current generation technology. We operate it in a grid-attached place where we're paying a traditional PPA. After 3 years, that equipment is fully depreciated. We move it to a wind farm where the marginal cost of energy is zero and the equipment is fully depreciated. So I essentially can do work, compute, at near zero cost. And if you look at the world of AI going forward, you won't need millisecond response time on a query for every single job you're doing. The vast majority of inference will be able to be done on a mid-range response time of under a second, which means you don't need to do it in a hyperscaler data center with terabit-sized fiber right next to where you're operating. You can run it in the middle of the desert off of solar energy in a data center with just high-speed fiber connection between it. And so we believe there's a place for all the renewable energy that's been made.
Yep.
I think a lot of renewable energy was built around the world believing that hydrogen was going to be the viable option to use that energy. The problem with hydrogen is it's really hard to transport.
Yeah.
And if you take one, think of it this way. If you take 100 watts of solar energy, you make hydrogen and then you turn that hydrogen back into energy, you only get 17 watts of energy out of it.
Sure. That's
Very inefficient.
Yeah.
And so the best use for a lot of the existing renewable energy that today doesn't operate at a profit, especially when you take the government subsidies away from it, is put data centers at the site of generation,
Right.
and then use technology to move the data back and forth.
Yeah.
And I think that's a much better use. And that lets you take this slack that exists in the grid today, in the energy generation for data centers, which gets you, according to that Duke study, it covers you for the years until all this nuclear stuff gets built, until the other infrastructure gets built. And I think, it's a little bit of a, there's been a cattle call to go build hyperscaler sites.
Right.
And I think even the capital providers today are saying, what's the value of this going to be in 5 years, really?
Sure. It's hard to determine that now,
Hard to determine, and I think there's a risk we're overbuilding, and then the lag time that it takes, even if our nuclear colleagues here can get stuff built, which is 4 or 5 years, right?
Yeah. Doug, you want to say something?
You made an awesome point, and I think it intersects with the point you made. One of the things, there's a piece of legislation, if the U.S. government reopens, it's called the Co-Location Act, which will address exactly what we've been talking about, and how we bring all these things together. Because, we at the nuclear company, we believe in it all. Right now, we can't afford to wait, and this piece of legislation directly addresses that. So in the United States, on disturbed lands where we already have natural gas going, or coal, et cetera, we will co-locate, we will put wind, we will put other things. And so I think that's the challenge. The one thing on this energy use stuff, we actually think data center use we also agree is going to go down because we think chips will get more efficient, et cetera. But overall, demand on the system is still going to increase. Projections are a 30% growth worldwide.
Sure.
Even
it's another U.S. or another Europe, coming
exactly.
in.
That would be the total consumption of the U.S. and the EU all combined today. But you make such a great point. Everything should be on the table. Tap into all of it. And selfishly for us, we are going to bring these plants online. We're excited to bring 18 plants online in the U.S. or whatever it happens to be, Central Europe and all of that. But the world is nuts not to be super creative and look at all these other solutions in the meantime while we do it.
Go nuclear all the way. That's Fadi. I want to come to you now and ask about kind of unlocking financial resources that could support voluntary carbon markets. How do you think we can unlock that?
We know that climate finance plays a major role in building clean energy. Unfortunately, today, only 15% of that climate finance goes to emerging markets. And this is where the carbon market can play a pivotal role in financing those projects around where it's actually needed. Like the carbon market can grow super fast. Just there's a report from McKinsey where like just the removal part of the market, so for removal of carbon, can grow up to 1.2 trillion by 2050. So just having that finance getting redirected to clean energy, renewable energy, is a big factor where it can achieve that.
For sure. Well, we have an audience question right now. I think there's a QR code that should appear. So please scan it and answer the question, is innovation enough to secure energy security? Yes or no? And while you do that, I have a kind of very fast question for everyone here on the panel, so like in 10 seconds, 20 seconds each. Do you think if we come back next year, next FII, are we going to be talking about the same problems? We're going to be talking still about energy security. We're going to be talking about how to meet the demand, coming up with solutions. Is this going to still be relevant, or we're going to kind of crack the code?
Well, with the current development in geopolitics, I think the question will continue to ongo. But hopefully, you know, the topics that I talked about, coordinated globalization between trusted industrial partners, that will be that will gain more solid track.
Thank you, Hanyung. Doug?
I think it'll be much of the same. That this is not going away. The hyperscalers are spending collectively over $500 billion a year on this. That's not going away. These are the biggest balance sheets in the world. And so I don't think we're going to have innovation in 12 months from now. And I think we're going to be focused on the same question. How can I get electrons today? Because I've spent all this money and I've got to activate my, my data sites.
Doug?
Yeah, I think in a year from now, we're going to be talking about the nuclear renaissance and the excitement around opening the first plant. Now, you left that
Okay.
to open.
You told me in 6 years.
Surprise.
Yeah.
No, I think some of the stuff, but I guess I'm always the optimist. I hope we're not. I hope we're like addressing the next problem.
Sure.
I mean, I just have spent the last 3 months traveling the world at these conferences, like AI. Hopefully we're talking about kind of the next exciting new thing, the next breakthrough in medical engineering. So I'm going to go with the optimism that no, we'll have a new set of topics.
What do you think?
I think when we come back next year, we will be faced with the reality that there is a tripolar world out there, and the global south will have come into its strength.
Yeah.
With that happening, it's completely realistic that the countries in the global south that have the resources and the ability to deploy energy, low-cost energy, build and deploy it quickly, that they will become the dominant location for where sovereign AI will want to be operated. And I'm hugely optimistic about what's going to happen here in this country specifically, and if you look at Vision 2030 and the implications of that from an energy perspective, I'm hugely optimistic about this part of the world.
Fadi?
I believe that for us to build in the infrastructure and the growth that is happening, we need to use every energy that's in our hand today, right? And again, we always have a lot of options to offset our emissions throughout the voluntary carbon.
Great. Well, let's get the result for the poll here. Is innovation enough to secure energy security? No. Yes or no? Let's see if we have the results.
No votes.
We need to innovate on
Anyone?
our poll taking.
No one voted.
I don't think enough people voted.
Let's blame the app. We'll blame the
Oh, it's
QR
not
code.
working? Okay.
Not
Technology problem. We're
Raise your hand.
Technical
right.
difficulties.
Raise your hands. Is it enough? Yes? Yeah.
There we go.
Okay. A few yeses. Well, gentlemen, thank you very much. I really enjoyed this conversation.
Thank you.
Thank you.